for it to connect on my end. Meeting is being live streamed. Got it.
All right.
Mute myself now, so there's no echo.
Okay, it's not being broadcast yet. It's just live, but I'm gonna say start now. Are you ready? It will make it go live. Yes. Source from Ashley's Zoom. So it starts at 6:55, so it should be coming soon.
You want me to, is Ashley going to share it or am I going to share it to the Facebook page?
Let's see. Hopefully it's coming up now, and then okay, I see us live on Facebook. And yes, source from Ashley's Zoom. Okay, I'm going to mute my computer speakers, but we are live on both. And I'm gonna see if we have anybody watching. Not so far, but we just started. And then let's see, Ashley, I'm gonna share my screen. Maybe.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Cheryl, how are you?
Hey, Cheryl.
Do we know an Anika Inman?
Yes. That's Cheryl's campaign manager.
She is in the room, but I don't know if you want to just have her on the live stream.
I'm going to Hey everybody, it's Christy with Deannex from Mableton. The live stream is going to be starting, well, we've got the live stream going here and on Facebook. If you have questions for us, you can put them in the chat, either in Facebook or on YouTube. So go ahead and put any questions you have for the candidates there now, and we'll keep an eye out for them. Otherwise, we will be getting started in just a few minutes. So Patty, I see it shared on your Facebook page.
Yes,
You shared it to the group as well?
I did. Should be there.
Yeah, let me just, I think I'm just not looking in the right spot. Give me 1 second. I think we got it. I want to be able to see people's questions. See, we've got some people watching on Facebook or on YouTube for sure. I see there's a few people watching on Facebook as well. Okay. There is a little bit of a lag, but I think it's okay as long as everyone, all the candidates, you guys are all watching this on Zoom, right? So you're,
Yes.
okay, perfect. Okay. All right, is everybody ready to get started?
As I'm gonna be.
Perfect. And you guys can see my screen with the Mableton candidate virtual meet and greet intro slide, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So thanks everyone for joining us. This is Christy Lynn, one of the organizers of Deannex from Mableton. Thank you all for joining us tonight for this virtual meet and greet. This is an opportunity for us to introduce to you virtually some of the candidates that we have endorsed for Mableton Mayor and City Council. We had an in-person meet and greet a couple of weeks ago that had a great turnout, but we know that that's not really realistic for everyone. So this is an opportunity for folks to meet our candidates virtually, and this will be available as a replay on YouTube for sure, maybe on Facebook as well. We'll have to work out the logistics of that. But if you know anyone that wasn't able to attend tonight, you can share the link to our YouTube page. That's YouTube. The name of the page is Deannex from Mableton, and you'll be able to watch from there. And anyone who missed it can watch there as well. I just wanted to start with a very brief update about, so this is our agenda. Let's see if I can get it to go to the next page here. There we go. We're going to do a quick de-annexation update. We're going to talk about why it's important to vote in this election. We'll do some introductions for the candidates, and then we'll do Q&A. So like I said, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, either on Facebook or on YouTube. You can do it, we won't say this question is from whoever if you're not comfortable with your name, and you can do a question for all of the candidates or one in particular, whatever you've got on your mind. And so let's see. So just a quick update about de-annexation. David Wilkerson has prepared 2 versions of maps that are being introduced to the Cobb delegation. And this is the first map. As you can see, I know it's hard to see, but this has been emailed to everyone as well. And unfortunately, we don't have any zoomable maps. This is the best version of the map we have. But this small area within the lightest blue area is the area of the current area of de-annexation in map version 1. This is essentially the Bernie O2 voting precinct. The boundaries are Hurt Road on the north edge, South Hurt Road and Cover Bridge on the eastern edge, Concord Road on the south edge, and Floyd Road on the western edge. And this area was chosen as this small area because it is represented by Georgia State Representative Michael Smith, and he supports de-annexation. And so typically folks in the legislature follow the wishes of the local representative. So since Michael Smith is supporting this area being de-annexed, this area is one of the suggested de-annexation areas. But we know that the de-annexation movement and desire to not be part of a city is much larger than just this one voting precinct where the movement started. And so a second version of the bill is also being introduced. And it looks like this. And it basically is requesting de-annexation of everyone who, all the precincts that voted no. And that line basically starts at Veterans Memorial. And you know, it's pretty unrealistic that this entire area will be de-annexed, but we requested this area because these are the precincts that voted no. And the representative for this area is Terry Cummings, and we've not been able to have her come to the table before this time to negotiate with us to say what areas she would allow to be de-annexed. So this is basically our opening offer to her, is to say, these are the places, or not just to her, but to the Cobb delegation, to say, these are the areas that wanted to be de-annexed, or these are the areas that voted no, and this is our request that these be removed from the city. And so the process right now is that these maps have been introduced to the Cobb delegation, and we are waiting for them to decide which version of the map they support. And if they don't support the second version, what area might they allow to be de-annexed? And so the next thing that's very important to talk about is, why should we vote if we don't want to be in the city? And the reason I bring this up is that we've seen some chatter about this exact topic, either via email or in email, via email or on social media posts, people saying, I don't want to be part of the city. Why would I vote? Someone said that it's like choosing your executioner. And I don't know if it's quite that severe, but Mableton is happening as a city. It is being formed. It passed. What the boundaries will be exactly, we don't exactly know, but de-annexation is not guaranteed. And so there will be a city of Mableton, and it will have residents, and it will have a mayor and city council. And we are a large voting block. More than 3,400 people signed the petition. And we are hoping that if we all stick together and show up to vote, that we can choose a majority of the council that represents what we think is important. And that is to prevent tax increases, to commit to the city light model, rather than, taking on full city services. The city was pitched as a city light model. And we believe that since that's what was promised to people when they were voting on the city, that is how the city should be set up. And then, we want people who support future de-annexation efforts if we're unsuccessful at this time. The city council could request, apparently there are situations where the county allows people to be de-annexed. Cities can request that areas be de-annexed by going to the legislature and saying, please redraw the map. So the city could initiate a de-annexation request. And so it's important to us that we support candidates and get candidates elected who agree with these, main basically values of our movement. The city was pitched with the promise of same taxes, better services. And we expect those things from the elected officials. We expect the same taxes. We expect better services, no more, no less. And it's also important to us that we elect ethical leaders. So a lot of people have concerns about how the city was formed in the first place, about the lack of notification. about some misinformation that was spread about, what services would be taken over, what would change, what wouldn't change. And so it's important to us that we have candidates who are transparent and truthful. And that was how these candidates were chosen to be the ones that we support. So you'll be hearing from these folks in a second. I'm going to unshare my screen so that you can see their faces as they answer their questions. But just to introduce the candidates on this, so you can see their faces here. Erin Carmen is our candidate for mayor. And then going left to right from the bottom here, we have Cheryl Davis in District 5, Deborah Johnson in District 1, Patricia Auk in District 4, Barry Krebs in District 3, and Deborah Herndon in District 6. So let me see if I can figure out how to stop sharing my screen so that hopefully you can see the candidates now. And so I'm going to ask, starting with Erin and then going, I guess, in order by city council district, we'll ask folks just to introduce yourself and start by telling us why you're running for city council. And in the meantime, folks who are watching us on the live stream, please put your questions in the chat.
Sure. Hi, so thank you, Christy, for summarizing everything and kicking it off. And my name is Erin Carmen. I'm running for mayor. I've been a longtime South Cobb resident since 1983 when my family moved to Smyrna. So over the past 40 years, most of my childhood, and I went away to college, and then I moved back as a young adult, lived in unincorporated Smyrna, and then now in Mableton for many years. And so I love this area. It's something that I've always loved as a kid growing up, but then now as an adult as well. I believe very strongly that this is a community that we should all be proud of. And through the process, I did vote no against the city back in November. And it was not because I didn't feel like there were parts of this area or the proposed city that didn't need additional services and support. I felt like it just should have come from the existing government process that we have in place from Cobb County, and not creating a whole new layer of government to do that. Now, obviously, since the election passed in November, it really propelled me to help support the de-annexation movement. And then from that, really, I started to lean in and say, you know what, I need to step forward and lead this change that the city is about to go through by running for public office and for mayor. And so the real reasons for me, the platform that I'm running on is, as Christy mentioned, same services, no more cost, right? So I'm really looking to mitigate the cost and the financial impact on all the residents in the form of additional taxes, and really making sure that we drive a conservative budget around the core services in the City Light model. Now, to do that, I feel like there's a couple things I want to clarify. I don't want to include trash management and trash services as part of the four proposed in the feasibility study. So I think we focus on zoning and planning, code enforcement, and the parks and rec, and really focus on delivering those well. And I think for me, if we do those things well over time, you're going to build the trust and the respect that we have from our constituents and our residents, that you can trust this new city government that's being formed, right? That it's well run, it's being run under budget, and it's something that you can be proud of. And so that's the real reasons that I've stepped forward to run. I'm not a career politician, just a longtime resident, and really am passionate about making sure that this area is well run and served by its new city government. Thank you, Christy.
And just, Erin, we did have a question in the chat. Someone was saying they wanted, when folks talk about their background, to say, yeah, you mentioned where you grew up. Did they go to college, and what's their day job? So can you tell us about your education and day job?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up here in Smyrna. I went to Campbell High School. And then for college, I went to Wingate University, which is a little private university outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. I played football in college. So that's how I found out about Wingate, because otherwise I would never probably heard of it. I majored in business management and also marketing. And then I began working with a large corporate IT firm out of college in sales. I've been in sales the majority of my career, but I've also advanced through sales operations, marketing, strategy roles, And for the past 3 or 4 years, I have built and led 2 teams that cover North America for IT sales and a target and budget of about $100 million.
Thank you, Aaron. Deborah, I think we'll go to you next since you're District 1. Could you please introduce yourself, tell us about your background, your education, your day job, and tell us about why you're running for City Council.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deborah Johnson, and I have been a resident of Cobb County for 23 plus years. I graduated from Chattanooga Technical College, which is a community college in the area for early child care education. And I am classes away from my Bachelor of Science degree with concentration of management and business management. So I am running for City Council to make sure there is a voice at the table to represent the people in the South Cobb County District. I have been an advocate for 20 plus years since I moved to Cobb County, advocating for different things in the area, like sidewalks, pedestrian crossings. I implemented a Silver Comet Trail entrance from Austell, which Austell did not have one. It was just simply from a phone call, answering the phone calls from the constituents in the district. That is going to be part of our job, to answer the call of concerns for people in the district. So I'm at the table to make sure that there is a voice for us in the South Cobb area represented. And just so you know, I voted no against cityhood. And I voted no because, as Aaron said, I feel like the services are a duplication of what we already have. I don't believe in duplicating the wheel. I do believe in oiling it to make it better and not digging up to make things worse. So that is why I'm at the table, to represent the people in my district.
Thank you very much, Deborah. We'll go to you next, Barry.
Hello, my name is Barry Krebs, and I've lived in Mableton for over 20 years. I've been an active volunteer for the past 10 years. I've been volunteering with Keep Cobb Beautiful, originally appointed to Keep Cobb Beautiful by then Commissioner Cupid, and I've been serving for the past 7.5 years. I'm now board chair for the last 2 years. We've accomplished some pretty significant things with Keep Cobb Beautiful. We've reduced litter by half over the past 5 years, and we actually came in as the second cleanest of the 4 districts this past year during the litter index. I'm also volunteer weekly with Sweetwater Mission. Sweetwater Mission, if you don't know, not aware of them, they're a wonderful organization that provides food to people in need. And they've got other plans underway with their transformation center. But I've also received a Volunteer of the Year last year with Sweetwater Mission, and we continue to have been really kicked up my participation with them since COVID. Okay, also been volunteering with the South Cobb Lions Club, and we've accomplished quite a bit, especially with visually impaired people, and we also conduct litter cleanups just about every Saturday morning. We're out there. We've been chosen, the Lions Club, as Keep America Beautiful's Community Improvement Award in 2016, and we continued to do strong things across the community. The reason I'm running for office, I have dedicated a lot of time volunteering. I know a lot of the people in Cobb County and just regular citizens here in Mableton, and I think I could dedicate quite a bit of time to improve this area and to make the city as successful as possible. And so please, I really appreciate your vote. Voter turnout has been slow so far, so anything that you could do would be appreciated.
Thank you, Barry. And we'll go to you next, Patricia, in District 4.
Hi, my name is Patricia Auk. I'm running for City Council in District 4. I guess I'll start with my background. I graduated from Judson College in 2007 with the dual majors in chemistry and biology, cum laude, and I got those 2 majors in 3 years. I currently work for a pharmaceutical contract manufacturing plant. Backgrounds in analytical chemistry, currently working in regulatory affairs. And I'm nervous, it's not even in person, goodness. And I'm running for city council because I feel like I have a very good pulse on my community. I've been involved. I've moved to Mableton in 2014. And since moving here, I've been very active in volunteering. I clean up litter with Barry almost every weekend, work as a poll worker, poll manager, clean up Heritage Park all the time, do privet pools, volunteer with Silver Comet races. I was awarded Friends of Mableton Volunteer of the Year. And I just, any opportunity to serve and to do something good for the community, I try to get in there and do it. And I really care about my community. I really like Mableton. I've liked my home. I didn't vote for the city because I just felt like the problems that we had could have been accomplished in other ways, but we are a city and there's some things we can do that's going to be very beneficial. And I have a vision for Mableton, and I think there's some great things we can do as far as walkability, beautification, and making this city a really great place. What else do I need to cover?
That's great.
Yeah,
That was great. Thank you very much.
thanks.
Let's see. So we'll go to Cheryl Davis from District 5.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to come before you all tonight. I'm Cheryl Davis. I'm running for District 5. I moved to Mableton in 2004. I'm originally from Atlanta. I grew up here. I went to Douglas High School and Georgia State University, where I majored in finance. I have 21 years of state government experience, where I spent 18 of those years in procurement, acquiring multi-million-dollar contracts on behalf of the state of Georgia. I, like Aaron said, some areas about Mableton are very nice, but there's some areas that are underserved. It's not that I did vote yes for Mableton. However, I did not know that they were going to be including all of these areas outside of Mableton. And I felt that we needed people that singularly focused on developing Mableton, because when these applications go into Cobb County, they don't live here, so they don't see what they're doing. So they're duplicating the services that we have. So that's why we have so many storage facilities or auto repair shops. If people actually live here and then we see what we're doing when those applications come in, maybe we can try to manage that a little better and get more diversity in our services. So Mableton is great. I love it here. I'm definitely have no plans to go anywhere else. I just wanted to help it grow and be better. I fully support anyone who wants to be Deannex or not a part of the city. And I completely understand and respect that. And given the opportunity, I will, see what we can do to try to benefit, help you out and vote in that area. And I think that's it. I can't think of anything else. You're right, Patty. Patricia, this is very nervous.
Oh, you guys are doing great. You're doing great. Thank you, Cheryl. So we'll go next to Deborah Herndon in District 6.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Christy, for organizing this meet and greet today. My name is Deborah Herndon, and I'm running for City Council for District 6. And I live in the northernmost part of what is now, Mableton. And I was motivated to run for City Council after I realized that we have been included in the map. And I recognize that the needs that we have here in the northernmost part is a little different than maybe some other areas. And so it was important to me that we have some representation, because as Cheryl was saying, for someone to make decisions for one area and they don't live here, they don't really know what it is that we need. So that was my motivation But as far as education, I have a background in counseling psychology and communication. I have a bachelor's degree from George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. And I currently work in the legal field as a legal practice specialist. I've been doing this work for well over 20 something years. And so I currently work for a construction group. And so we handle a lot of large scale projects as part of this global law firm. As a matter of fact, our attorney wrote a lot of the contracts for the battery and that area over there. So I think that's kind of, we were part of the negotiation for that. So I think having that background also made me realize how important it is for community input when something is being developed, because oftentimes there are people who have certain ideas about how the city should be run without necessarily thinking about the overall impact that it will have in the surrounding community. So based on that, I thought it was really important to have a seat at the table and run for city council.
Great, thank you, Deborah. So I just wanted to add, when we were talking about why it's important to vote, I know, there have been a lot of things said in social media and in some articles about the de-annexation movement and our motivations. And now that folks have met the candidates, I just wanted to address those a little bit. Some people have been concerned that de-annexation wants to run candidates who are going to derail the city in some way, or who don't have the best interests of the city at heart. And one of the reasons that we wanted to have this forum tonight, and the reason that I'm mentioning this now, is that I think it's obvious once you speak to the candidates and hear them speak and get to know them a little bit, that they may not have been in favor of the city passing in the first place, but none of them have the intention of derailing the city. It doesn't benefit anyone. So, I want to be de-annexed, right? We all want to be de-annexed. If de-annexation is successful for where I live, it does not benefit me in any way to have Mableton poorly run, or to have unethical people making deals that don't benefit the city. That doesn't benefit anyone in South Cobb. And to be very clear, that is not the motivation of this movement. And I just want to say that to anyone who may be listening or may speak to anyone who has written otherwise. We've been described with things that I won't repeat, but that don't represent our movement and these candidates. And I hope that once you see the quality of the candidates that we're supporting, that people realize that is just noise, and that we really do have the best interest of South Cobb at heart and Mableton. We want the city to be successful, whether we're a part of it or not. And so there is a question, a couple questions just about the city itself. So some folks who are sort of, just so everyone's on the same page, a letter went out this week from the county letting folks know that they were a part of the city. And so I think people are just catching up on how this happened in the first place. And so just to briefly address the history of how this happened, a group called Preserve South Cobb was formed 5 or 6 years ago at least. And they paid for a feasibility study from the Carl Vinson Institute at the University of Georgia, which is a requirement of if you want to start a city, you have to get a feasibility study to see if it's financially feasible. And that information now is several years old. It was based on data from 2017 and 2018. But based on that feasibility study, Representative Erica Thomas, who's the previous representative for District 39, introduced a bill in 2020 to form a new city. And the bill was defeated at that time, and the city was not formed. But then the bill was reintroduced in 2022, and the general public that was included in the map was not notified. It was not a requirement that unfortunately, there's no requirement that people be notified. And because it was not a requirement, it did not happen. And so when, my neighborhood found out about it around this time last year, we formed a group called Preserve South Cobb, and that ran the Vote No to Mableton campaign. The pro city side was Mableton Yes. That consisted of the chair was William Wilson, who is running in District 3. The co-chair was Erica Thomas, who did not run for re-election. The secretary was Galt Porter, who lives in DeKalb County. And the treasurer was Trey Hutchins, who is on the on the school board. And they ran the campaign. But again, they had several years to gather funding and gather strategy. And we found out about it when the ball was already rolling and the bill was already on the governor's desk to be signed. And so we didn't have any chance of killing it. The best chance we had was to vote it down. And so we did the best we could to get the message out. And we were successful in the areas where we got our message out loudly. So there were districts that voted 70% or more against the city, but we were outnumbered by the folks below Veterans Memorial. And so that's how this came about. That's how cities are formed. All it takes is a legislator to introduce a bill and it passes through the legislation and gets voted on by the people. And we only lost by less than 1,500 votes, but the city passed. And so there's also a question about if we're included in the city, will our address and zip code change? Your address and zip code are a function of the post office. And so the only way your address and zip code will change is if the post office decides to consolidate under one or more post offices. Now, there doesn't appear to be any immediate plans for that to happen, but I will say that in Peachtree Corners in Gwinnett, their city lobbied the post office to all unite under one. And so those folks did have an address change. So, it's something that the city council would have to decide whether that's something they would want to take up, if they would want to petition the USPS to consolidate. It's possible. Whether or not it will happen is still to be determined. And let's see. There's a question, let's see, about if you say taxes aren't going up, where's the money coming from? How do the responsibilities get split between the county commissioners and the new council and mayor? So the way the feasibility study assumed the city would be funded was that you would pay your usual county taxes, and a portion of that money would be transferred to the city to administer the services that are being taken over. And so the city was pitched as providing 4 services: zoning and planning, code enforcement, parks and recreation, and trash service. By law, a city needs to provide 3 services. And so they would be taking over those first 3 services: zoning, code enforcement, and parks from the county. And so say, just rough numbers, just for an example, say you pay $1,000 right now to the county in taxes. $30 of that, you'd still pay $1,000 to the county, but $30 of that would be moved from the county to the city for them to administer those services. However, the city charter, the bill that passed, the bill that was voted on into law, does allow the city council to set a millage rate so they can collect property taxes. And part of the reason that we encouraged people to vote no and ran that campaign is that we don't believe it's realistic that the city will be able to function without setting a separate millage rate and raising taxes. And there are a lot of senior citizens and people on fixed incomes and people who don't see the benefit of adding an additional layer of government that duplicates services to have to pay more taxes. So To the first person who said, if you say taxes aren't going up, where's the money coming from? I don't believe it's realistic that taxes aren't going up unless we elect people who commit to that philosophy, that if we can't afford it, then we won't, without raising taxes, then we won't have it. And so I think that's a good question then for the candidates, if each of you want to address, would you vote to increase taxes? How do you feel about, how you'll manage the budget? Somebody else asked, yeah, I'm in District 4. I'm curious how you plan to stay in budget. Taxes are already higher than expected. And so, I guess folks want to know.
So Christy, I'm happy to jump in first if you don't mind. So yeah, one of the things that I've said from day one, and it's one of the main reasons why I wanted to step forward and run, is to make sure that as we take on these services, that we really minimize the financial impact on the residents for all the reasons that Christy just talked about, as far as folks that are on fixed incomes, our senior communities, and like let's all be honest, like the way the economic conditions are now with inflation and everything, it's tough to continue to absorb increases in your day-to-day budget and your annual budget and not feel like you're starting to be upside down. So again, the way this was all proposed and presented to the community was that you're going to get these same services or better services at the same cost, right? So I think the people that are elected into office, and it starts with the mayor and then the city council, we need to uphold that promise to our residents, all residents, and that begins with first working with Cobb County to get the real numbers, because the feasibility study was done based off numbers in 2018. So we're now talking about 5-year difference between when those first estimates were drawn up and what they are today. So we'll need to fully understand and work with our partners at Cobb County to understand what those revenues will be, and then develop a budget responsibly around, and in my opinion, I think just the 3 services: zoning and planning, code enforcement, and parks and rec, and leaving trash out of this as we roll out the City Light model. And then once we establish that budget and start to work through the transitionary period with Cobb County, that can take over the course of 2 years to fully transition away from Cobb County into the city model. As far as new taxes and mill rate and things along those lines, I believe that we are responsible to our residents, and any form of a tax increase or proposing any of that moving forward, that should come from getting the buy-in from our residents. And so if there's needs and things that we uncover as we go to roll out the city model, we should take those forward in an open, honest, and transparent way to our residents and solicit the feedback on what the needs are and what you want to see happen with those situations and with the city. And if that involves any tax increase, it has to be something that's supported and approved by all of the residents in Mableton, and not just us, the city council and mayor, coming forward and saying, we want to roll out additional services. We want to put more into the city and not include our residents in that process. So again, that's my stance as far as the platform that I'm running on, is to minimize that as much as possible, so we do not impact people financially, but still provide those services in the core City Light model.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm also committed to staying with the City Light model, and I don't think trash is something we need to take on initially. That has been the #1 thing I've heard in my district is, don't touch my trash. I get donations and there's a note attached to it and it says, don't touch my trash. So that's something we need to do right away, especially with how the city was formed, how close the vote was, how a little bit divided this city is from the start. So I'm committed to the City Light model and following as closely to what was deemed feasible in the study as close as possible, so that we do not have to levy an additional city tax. That doesn't mean that there won't be additional costs. There are other revenue sources that we have to get the revenue from somewhere. But I'm going to try to follow the feasibility study as closely as possible to ensure that we mitigate the financial burden to our citizens. And That's what I'm going to do.
Yes,
Well,
Patricia.
according to the feasibility study, taxes do not have to be raised, which we don't know how true that is because we have not formed a council or a mayor to make those decisions as to what, even though the 3 service or the 4 services has been implemented, it is really up to the mayor and the councilmen and women to come up with what they think is best for the city. As far as taxes is concerned, I don't believe that we won't be able to raise taxes, but my stance is to keep them as low as possible and to work for the seniors having tax exemptions. Now, I do understand we will need money, and I do understand there will have to be some fundraising going on and some counterparts from the county. But my stance is to cover our seniors who are on a fixed income and those who are not really maybe cannot afford to pay additional taxes above the millage rate. So that's my stance.
Yes, I agree as well. I have always said from day one, that would not be the first thing I do when I walk in the door. The feasibility was done before COVID. So a lot of things has changed. And so therefore we do need to do a new feasibility study. That is true. But walking in the door is not my intent to impose a millage rate. And if they say we do need additional funding, I'm looking at every other option that we can do to generate revenue, maybe a SPOTS, add a penny sales tax or something like that. That is not something I want to do. I support, and I will try to put it off as long as possible. And if we develop the city right with more diversity of services, so we're not leaving our community to get the things that we need, we may be able to hopefully not ever do it. So I agree wholeheartedly.
I was going to chime in and say, I think it's definitely important because the feasibility study was done, so long ago to get the real numbers. Once we have a conversation with Cobb County and we start transitioning to see exactly what our budget is. I know my stance is this. I kind of grew up that you pay for what you can afford, and you don't borrow. You don't, you work with what you have. And I think that's why budgets are set. It's like you look at what you need to pay for, and then you determine how much you can pay, for some of these services. So I'm definitely not a proponent of raising taxes. I feel like that should be the last resort. And even then, as Aaron said, I think it's something that should be discussed, with the community, because we are not working for ourselves based on what we think is going to be right. We are working for our constituents and what their needs are. So I think, before any taxes are raised, if they have to be raised, that we should get that buy-in, with our constituents. But in the meantime, the way the feasibility study was written, we should be able to cover those 3 to 4 services within the budget. And I'm thinking maybe the numbers might be greater now. I'm not really sure. We have to see what budget that we have and make the decisions based on that.
I agree with my friends here. I have lots of friends who are on fixed incomes, who are seniors and cannot afford any additional taxes. So I am a proponent of the City Light format, and I would only raise taxes as a last resort with maximum transparency. I want my constituents to know exactly why we're raising taxes, and I would solicit their input before raising a single cent.
Great, thank you, everyone. We just have one request from the chat to please briefly identify yourself and which area you're running for. Some folks missed the very beginning introduction, so just so folks know which district each person is in, I think that would be helpful. There was one other question. I wanted to go back a little bit to you, Aaron, if you don't mind, just to speak about the trash issue. So I know that there have been 4 the city was pitched with 4 services, 3 that would be taken over from the county, and trash, which would be taken over from the citizens themselves. And like we said, the city's only required to do 3 services. So how do you feel about taking over trash? And can you just talk a little bit about the logistics of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first things that I found out very quickly when I stepped forward to run and started talking with people in the community, as Patty, I think, mentioned, the people that first thing they say to me is, please don't take away my trash or my option of my provider. And to me, as I started looking at it, the other thing that we know is that there's several service providers that have started here in Mableton, and they reside here in Mableton as small business owners. And the mandate of a sole provider to all of our residents would essentially cripple some of these Mableton-based businesses that are trash providers. Secondly, we've got very diverse needs within the city as far as trash service, right? So when you talk to residents, they want the freedom of choice to be able to openly compete and look for the best offering for their needs. We have seniors or folks that have very long driveways that pay additional to have backdoor pickup service so they don't have to roll their cans down to the street. You start to lose some of that customized service and the ability to negotiate that with your provider when you mandate a single provider across the entire city, right? So that's the first stance, is that I feel like we need to protect our residents' rights to choose. And then the piece that really, when you talk to people that say, hey, but what about litter? What about dumping and some of the challenges that we have in Mableton? And I would 100% agree with you, right? But I feel like there's some things that we can do to manage those issues. And again, it goes back to the original thing that, do we need the city model to solve some of the problems? In this case, I feel like we can do programs with our nonprofits, use the arm of code enforcement. So if we see folks that are allowing dumping on vacant lots and so forth, we can enforce code and fines for those lots and dumping. If we catch people littering or dumping, we can issue fines. And if folks are not able to pay those fines, then we can have them serve on nonprofits like Keep Cobb Beautiful and do volunteer service hours. Folks that have to do those service hours and pick up trash on the side of the street are going to be less inclined to litter out their windows and so forth. The other thing is, I think we can do programs with our schools, the community centers, the churches, and really be advocates as elected officials for keeping Mableton clean and beautiful, and educating people about options for littering and not littering. And then one of the ideas that I think that is very viable is to have large trash pickup dates where we can partner with some of the service providers in the area and have various locations all over the city where residents can bring large items and throw them away on certain dates and times versus having folks dump them in vacant lots or in the woods or on the side of the road. So I think there's programs that we can put in place to help reduce the litter and the dumping, and in partnership with our nonprofits and commercial providers. But I don't think we need to mandate a single sole source provider for trash to our residents.
Do any of the city council, I don't know if it's something that everyone needs to answer or wants to answer, but if any of the city council candidates feel strongly that this is an issue in their precinct or in their district that they want to address, like if you want to comment on the trash, providing trash service or not, please feel free.
I think the litter is a problem. I don't think the trash pickup is necessarily related to the litter problem. We have nearby cities, we have Atlanta, you have Smyrna, and they have just as bad of a litter problem. And I see Keep Smyrna Beautiful out picking up litter, just like Keep Cobb Beautiful is out there. We're picking up litter. I think code enforcement, more stringent code enforcement is going to take care of a lot of the illegal dumping aspects. But I don't think having a mandated one hauler pickup is going to fix our litter problem. It is a problem. I do want to address the litter problem. I do want to partner with the schools and with our nonprofits and look for a solution. It is something that I've been working with personally, volunteering a lot trying to curb it, but it is a behavioral problem. And that's a little more complicated and complex than just having mandated trash pickup.
I just wanted to comment that I feel like the market thrives when there is choice. And I think having just one trash, I mean, we're already hearing about trash companies now where there's an issue with them picking up because basically maybe in that particular area, they're the only choice, you know? And so I think for the city to take away the choices of the residents is just not a positive thing. I mean, certainly for those areas that have issues with trash pickup, maybe the city can step in and maybe work with that particular vendor so that they can get up to speed if that's something that can happen. But otherwise, you know, trying to take away the choices that the residents have for trash, I don't think it's going to bode very well for the city as a whole.
To kind of join in what Patty was talking about, we have discussed cameras in high dumping areas to be monitored by the new code enforcement, and hopefully that will discourage some of the furniture dumping around the city.
I also think that creating a coalition of community stakeholders under the neighborhood watch to help alleviate some of the dumping would help. I know I've done many cleanups. Just did one in January where it was the largest one that we had with 72 volunteers and 52 bags of trash. But I think that creating a neighborhood watch program would definitely alleviate some of the dumping.
Well, I agree with everyone. I don't see how centralizing it will alleviate the problem. You know, if it's a behavioral thing. The people who don't care about their community are going to just throw trash anywhere. So I'm sorry, she gets fussy. she's quieter when she's in my lap. So I agree. I don't see how one company can adequately serve 78,000 residents. You know, I agree. I think it should still remain independent.
Great, thank you, everyone. I just wanted to, address a couple of questions in the chat about, is there a physical map we can reference of current Mableton? So Mableton is currently, well, before the vote, it's a census designated area. And so it makes up the zip code 30126. And if you go to Google Maps and search Mableton or zip code 30126, you'd get that area outlined. As far as the map of and that area includes about 30,000 people. The new city of Mableton has about 78,000 people because it includes not just Mableton proper, but also unincorporated areas of Austell, Smyrna, Marietta, and Powder Springs. And so to see that map, the best place to go to is to the county website. They have an information page about Mableton and the election and lots of information there. So I think if you Google like Cobb County Mableton information, you'll find through that search the page that the county has with all of the information, and that will show you not only the city but the districts, so you'll know which district you'll be voting for. And that's important because someone asked us at another meet and greet we had, when you go to vote, there will only be 2 questions on your ballot. You will vote for mayor, and you will vote for the city council person in the district where you live only. You don't vote for the other districts, and these city council people are dedicated to their own districts. So I voted. It literally it's so fast. There's only 2 questions on there, bing, bing, and you're out of there. So, and right now early voting is still going on through the end of this week at the Mabel House Art Center, and I believe it's called the South Cobb Community Center, on
620 Lions Club Drive.
on Lions Club Drive. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. And so that's where you can find a map. And then someone else asked, is there any chance the vote to becoming a city could be overturned? So we decided to pursue de-annexation because it seemed like the most realistic way to reverse for some people, and get some people out of the city who voted heavily against. The election cannot, we didn't pursue legal action through a lawyer because the number, there were some irregularities that we've heard about, that some people who should have had it on their ballot didn't, that people who didn't, shouldn't have voted did vote. There were concerns about the ballot language, those things. It didn't seem like the number of irregularities we'd heard about would overturn the nearly 1,500 votes that we lost by. So overturning the election, we've all seen in the last couple of years, right? Elections don't get overturned in Georgia, or really anywhere. And so, that was not a realistic path to take. That's why we went down the path with the legislators. There was some talk at one time of proposing a revote, because people, now that they have found out that they're included in the city, people thought it was just relating to Mableton. Now that people have found out that they are included, there was an appetite for a revote. But when we took that to the legislature, there was no appetite there. So that version of, our movement, we want to revote, that will not be progressing, to be quite honest. There will not be a bill to revote because the idea that's seen as overturning the election, and the legislators did not want to pursue that. Let's see. We have one person saying, thank you for speaking to us, because we need to meet and be comfortable with who we're voting for, and just saying thank you for that. Someone saying they love the idea of designated days for trash pickup for large items. I happen to think that's a great idea too. I know there are some local cities that provide municipal trash that have that as a service. And I think it probably does help to avoid dumping. Let's see. So I wanted to ask each of the city council candidates, what do you think is the biggest issue facing your district, and how do you propose to address that issue? And let's start, is it okay with you, Deborah, if we start with you in District 1?
That is quite okay.
Okay.
I think the biggest issue that we have is engagement. As you know, that voter turnout is very, very low for District 1. And being an advocate in the community, we have very few people who are coming to the table to address concerns and issues that we have within District 1. Trash is a major problem. You drive down any major street, especially Blair Bridge, there is furniture across the street from hotels, stays, and corners of our district. And along with that is lighting. It needs to be lighting. I think that is how people feel that they can dump, because it's dark areas with very few lighting. So I think that is the biggest issue. We can't get any businesses to attract or home buyers to come and want to buy in the area because of the trash. So I think that's a very big issue.
Thank you. Barry, do you want to tell us about what you think is the biggest issue in District 3?
My biggest goal would be to attract young professionals to this area, and we can do this several ways. Make Mableton as desirable a place as possible to move to your young families, and getting a Veterans Memorial, Mableton Parkway, with new robust businesses that will prompt shopping and opportunities in the area.
Great, thank you. Patty?
Okay, I'm District 4, and I think couple things that I think are the biggest issue for my district. One is, well, I had a large population not wanting to be in a city. 64% of District 4 voted against it. So that's going to be a challenge, but there is also things like as far as what the city can do in services. Veterans Memorial does hit the lower part of my district, and there's redeveloping and enticing businesses and zoning is going to be, and code enforcement is going to be things that can revitalize that area. I think we can do some things with marketing to make businesses want to come and set up shop in Mableton. And we could start using zoning to beautify each parcel at a time and making our city look the way it wants to. And then a super hyper local issue would be, I know someone brought this up at the Friday meet and greet with all the candidates in Heritage Park, and it's something, it has come a little bit of a hookup spot and a lot of partying and trash and things happening at night. I would like to personally get that addressed. There's been gates that have been added to that park within the last year, maybe year and a half, and it's never been used. So perhaps locking Heritage Park at night and trying to deter that kind of activity would be a step in the right direction on as far as improving our parks.
Great, Cheryl.
Okay, so yeah, I have to agree with Deborah. Engagement is a huge issue, and the code enforcement. A lot of our businesses don't take pride in their business and revitalize and update and keep their facilities clean and painted and just maintained. So I want to encourage that. And if you can follow me a little bit on the map, because you know, as you all realize, on one side of the street is one district, on another side of the street is another. So from the corner of Veterans Memorial and Floyd, all the way down to Thornton Road, all the way down to Six Flags, it's practically nothing. You know, there's maybe one bank. We have 2 Hispanic grocery stores. We have maybe 5 or 6 smaller restaurants. And for those individuals that live in the factory shoals all the way down the Riverside area, to have to drive so far away, you know, to just to get some of the resources and the services that they use on a daily basis. So if we can just kind of develop this area, it'll be a great revenue generator for us. And if we can just get the community involved, then that would be great as well.
Thank you. And then Deborah from District 6.
Right. Oh, I was going to say that. I remind everyone that I'm from District 6, but I think we have a few issues going on right now. To echo what Patty mentioned, is that right now I have a lot of very angry residents in my district, and I've been running across them as I'm going door to door, you know, many of whom are very upset that they've been included in Mableton. And as the city moves forward, it's going to be really important for me to show them how the city can work for them, you know, and how they can have input on what's happening, you know, in their communities, even though they may have been pulled into the city, you know, not by choice. And I know one of the things that I've been hearing a lot as far as my particular district is people are saying that the types of businesses that are coming in, you know, they want different types of restaurants instead of the chain restaurants all the time, and a little bit more variety as far as that's concerned. So I definitely would be open to assisting, you know, in the choices of businesses that come into District 6. And I think lastly, there's been some concern about zoning. I've been hearing a lot about these high density communities that are kind of cropping up everywhere. I know we have a huge community that's at the corner of East West and I'll just say by the Home Depot. I forgot what street that is, which is just humongous. And, you know, a lot of residents are concerned, you know, that we're going to have that type of building that's going to be cropping up on every, you know, corner or every vacant lot. So I think that is definitely a big concern and something that can be addressed with the proper zoning decision.
Great, thank you, everyone. There's someone
Hey,
asked the
Chrissy.
question. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say something real quick, if you don't mind, before we transition to the next
Yes.
question. So for me, it's always fun and kind of interesting to hear the diversity of things from each of the districts, right? Like, so there are unique needs from each district. And one of the things I think that kind of got us into a lot of this mess was you hear about community engagement and getting people involved and understanding of what's happening. And a lot of times, one of the things that I've been talking to people, and I know many of the candidates here, I hear them talking to folks as well, that really are committed to getting out into our districts and into our communities and our neighborhoods as, you know, ways of connecting with us, but it's ways of listening and understanding what the needs are of the district and being able to solicit that feedback as part of how we will all collectively work together to make sure that we're working towards the greater good of Mableton, right? So I think that's a huge piece of soliciting that feedback from our community and not just relying on, you know, publishing things on a website and hoping that everybody consumes it, right? I think we need to take it to the streets, take it to the districts, and really solicit the feedback of what those needs are in each individual district, because they're very different, right? And I think that as leaders here, I know everyone that's on this call is very passionate about doing that. So it's always interesting and fun to hear that kind of feedback that they see in their district.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I wanted to ask as well, someone asked in the chat about goals for Parks and Rec, and just to add my own question to that, I guess, I remember during the cityhood campaign, people were saying that one of the reasons people, you know, the idea of Mableton becoming a city originally came about. One of those reasons was that people wanted kind of a sense of place and, you know, to make Mableton like feel, you know, I know there's been talk about maybe downtown area or making some walkable districts. And so I just wanted to see if any of you have any plans or ideas. I know it's kind of early to say you have plans since there's no budget, but any ideas about how Parks and Rec would help bring the city together or give that sense of place that people were looking for when they voted for the city?
I think, oh, go ahead, Cheryl.
I'm sorry. That's one of the things that I've been saying, like from the very beginning. I would love to have more activities. I'm a huge fan of screen on the green, going to the park and watching a movie on a picnic blanket. So, and just if we have like more activities like Taste of Mableton, and not that let that be the only one that we have, but we have several throughout the year. I think that would be great. And maybe some jazz concerts or, you know, more parades, more activities, you know, to bring the community out more than they do. Right, go ahead.
Yeah, so programming, I think, is a great way to go and foster community engagement. It gives people a reason to gather. It even gives a sense of place in having a center when people come together to do those things. So I think that's going to help improve our parks, having just recreational programming, and we can do that with partnership with organizations within the city, which we have several that have been doing it. Mableton Improvement Coalition is one. I have some complaints about them, but I have some really great things to say they've done well, and I think the Taste of Mableton is one of them. And some of the other things they've done, like Community Garden, and there's other organizations that also have activities. First Christian Church of Mableton is having an Easter egg hunt coming up next month. So those are things that just bring the community together, and I think really helps foster a sense of place and community.
I'm just going to interject and brag on Patty a little bit there. And I think Barry was involved in this as well, that they started with their group, the Very Merry Mableton Downtown Christmas in Mableton. And I think that's something that the public likes to see, right? Because when you think of other cities that have, you know, Smyrna has Jonquil Fest and Marietta has the big 4th of July and everyone has their thing, that, you know, that a downtown Christmas thing is something that makes a town feel like a home. And while I don't think we needed cityhood to do it, I just wanted to point out that that's something that Patty and Barry are already working on in the community. So they've already shown their commitment to making Mableton more of a home for all of us. And since neither of them mentioned, I just wanted to brag on them a little bit.
Thank you.
Let's see. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to wait to see if there was anybody else that wanted to talk about the parks, but I echo all the thoughts that have been shared here. But I think the parks and future other green spaces will be one of our biggest and key assets as a city moving forward. And one of the things when I'm talking to people, if you think about the fact that we've had 53% of the people vote for the city and 47 against, it's very divided, right? And many of you that are probably watching tonight voted against the city and are kind of upset that this is happening. But I think we can use the parks as a way to bring our community together, right? Different events, this is where our kids will go out and play on the playgrounds, and where we meet our neighbors, and where we can find common ground on a lot of things. And so that can come around different events, whether it's concerts in the park and events for kids, sports teams playing on the fields. That's where we meet a lot of our friends when our kids are playing on those fields. And then just things like fireworks in the park and, different events that we can do throughout the year. It shouldn't just be one or two occasions. We should be using these as one of our biggest assets to bring our community together. And that starts with us taking ownership of these parks and making sure that they're clean, they're safe, they're well lit, and people feel comfortable using these parks and proud of these parks, right? And I think that's something that we can do now that we have direct control over them, and really use them as the assets that they are.
That's great. Thank you, everyone. There was just to sort of touch on that a little bit more, I wanted to know if some folks were talking about how, since each district has its own kind of unique needs. I know you've touched on this a little bit, Erin. I don't know if you have anything else to add to it, but if any of the city council candidates want to talk about other ideas they have for bringing the city together as a whole, if the areas are so segmented, if you guys have anything you want to comment about that.
I think just having a cohesive city council that is going to listen to each district needs. It is a big city. There's a lot of unique needs. There's some areas that really aren't into the high density townhomes, but there's some parts of the city that are itching for some high density and want to bring in more rooftops. And I think it's going to just be taking an open mind and a functioning city council that works well together that's going to help unify us in some degree.
Yeah, I was going to say that the good thing about having these different districts, especially when you have people who reside in these districts, is that they individually know what is best for their community. And I think as council people, as we work together, we should respect when a council person comes and says, hey, this is what is needed in my particular district, because who else would know better than someone who lives in that area. And I think if we work, as Patty said, if we work together and just trust that each council person knows what is necessary in their particular area and respect that we could probably work together to bring everyone, because if everyone in your district is getting what it is that they need for themselves, then people are going to be pleased with how the city council is running.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. I think as elected officials, both the city council and the mayor, we need to be leaders in this change and the rolling out of the city. And that doesn't mean that we're always going to agree on every single detail on how things should be done. But I love the words that we keep hearing, like trust, respect. And I think those are very key components of working with people. You don't necessarily always have to agree, but we should lead with that being honest and open and transparent. That builds the trust. And even though we might disagree on how things are done, we can work together out of respect for one another and lead that way. So we can't expect the city to come together and trust the government, the newly elected government, and all the officials that are going to be in place if we're not demonstrating that in how we work together as city council and mayor and the folks serving the community. So I think we need to lead by example. And I think we need to be transparent in how we communicate with our community. We need to do it in multi-forms. So it can't just be digital. It can't be, streaming, the city council meetings and things like that. We need to go out to the community, physically have town halls, physically have meet and greets continuously after the folks have been elected. And then we need to do mailings. We need to do newsletters. We have to over communicate what we're trying to accomplish in the city so that people fully understand. Because again, that's where a lot of the mistrust has come from, is not being aware, not being communicated with effectively. And so I think that comes from just making sure that we do everything we can to be transparent, respect one another, and over communicate the things that we're trying to accomplish.
I agree with Aaron. I think a lot of the distrust and anger that's happened with the city could have been prevented with just good communication, just letting residents feel like they're part of the process, they're part of the decision, and city council and the mayor is going to have a big role in making sure that we effectively communicate to the citizens. I think it's very important.
Yeah, and I want folks to know, so you guys are like reading the mind of the chat. Some people were saying like, we need better communication, those things. And I want folks to know that, Deannex from Mableton, whether de-annexation is successful or not, that I think there are members of the group, myself included, who feel strongly that the community needs to stay engaged, whether on the legislative level, so that things like this don't sneak up on us again, or, on once the city council is seated, the mayor and city council, to make sure that our voices are being heard, and that, we're not that there isn't too much influence from outside influences, and, that the best interests of everyone in Mableton are in mind, and that everyone is, stays in the loop. So now that we have this community of people who have, connected with us through the petition, I think that we will stay, try to remain a source of information for people, keeping people alert, next legislative session, what kind of things are going on that might affect the area, keep folks aware of what's going on with the city council, just so that, not as a watchdog, but more as just a resource for the community to help people stay connected and stay engaged. One person just did have a question about who will police Mableton. So the city was pitched as taking over 4 services: code enforcement, zoning, Parks and Rec, and trash service. They only have to take over 3 services. The main services, so things like police, fire, EMS, roads, the jail, the sheriff, the courts, those will remain with the county. So, you'll have county police, and also the school system. By law, no new cities are allowed to start new school systems. So it is a separate government entity, and the schools, for better or worse, cityhood will not have any direct impact on the schools. Of course, if a rapid change in density or, housing density or something like that could have an effect on schools indirectly. Or then there's positive, indirect things like folks were talking about doing, community outreach through schools for things like litter pickup and those things, but it will not be able to take over. It will not take over the schools or have any direct impact on schools. And same with the police, unless at some point in the future. And that's why we're asking candidates, we're supporting candidates who want to stick to the city light model, because the city charter does allow for the city to take over. They basically have home rule, and they can take over any services that they want, that within limits, right? They can't take over schools, but they could decide to take over police. They could decide to take over the fire department. They could decide to take over roads or wastewater, those kind of things. But most people are happy with those services from the county. And so we don't, as a movement, we don't believe in taking over in an extra layer of government to provide a duplicate layer of services for those services. And that's why the city light model is something that we support. Aaron, did you have something you wanted to add to that? I thought you were waving at me.
Oh, no, I was just crossing my fingers.
Just generally waving. Okay. So if anybody has any questions, it's kind of last call for questions in the chat. And I just wanted to see if anyone, if you all want to make a final statement, if anyone has any kind of anything that they wanted to share, anything that didn't come up, please go ahead.
So I'll break the silence. So to me, I think the final parting words are, when I talk to people and they ask, how can we support you? How can we help your campaign? How can we help your candidacy? Or what can I do in general? And the one of the few things that I ask for is, A, word of mouth, we could use your help getting the message out. And then secondly, I strongly encourage people to not stay home on this and to get out and vote. Obviously, I'm running for mayor, and I would love for you to vote for me. And I feel like I'm trying to represent Mableton the best way I can. But if it's not for me, I want you to get out and vote, and I want us to have a voice in the elected officials that are going to represent us in the city of Mableton. A lot of folks, if you look at the early voting results, have not come out yet. Now that could be because you're waiting for election day, and that's fine. But please make sure we go out, we vote, talk to our neighbors. There's still people that we find every day that live in streets or neighborhoods across within the city parameters of Mableton that are not aware that they're a part of the city. So talking to people, sharing the news and updates as far as the election and being a part of the city is a huge thing. But ultimately, to get out and vote, and I can say from the interactions and the conversations that I've had with all of the folks that are on this meeting from a city council perspective, all of these folks are super passionate about Mableton. They're passionate about seeing Mableton done well and being successful. And it's an honor for me to be in a meeting like this with all the wonderful folks that are here. And Christy, thank you for putting this together and helping organize it.
My pleasure. Anyone else?
Well, I would just like to add, I don't know if you can hear me, I lost my volume, which is why I moved from where I was. But I would just like to add the services that we need to make the city run well. Like we all know that we have a desert for food and banks and engagement and things of that nature. So we cannot do this alone. It does take the residents and the constituents to get out and be engaged and help us with the process of trying to create this city. We need your ideas. We want to know what you want to see, So with that being said, I'm District 1 candidate. I've been working in the community for some time now, and I won't stop working even if I'm not elected. I'm a servant at heart, and that's what I love to do is help, and that's what I have been doing.
I wanted to say, I just wanted to touch on honesty, transparency, and communication. I think those are really important. I think a lot of the angst and the anger when it comes to the incorporation of Mableton is because a lot of residents felt as though they were not informed. And so I know for me, that is paramount. And so one of my pillars is just being open and honest, like, sharing the good, the bad, the ugly, because when people get the information, then they have an opportunity to chime in, to, go to their legislature and fight for what it is that they want, but if they're not given the information and they don't know about it, and then decisions are being made, and that's where you have a lot of the rift and a lot of the distrust. And so I just think it's important as a council person and, as mayor, just that we continue to communicate with our constituents to let them know, what decisions are being made, what's going to be on the floor. And, as Christy touched on, to over communicate if necessary, because we're all caught up in our day-to-day lives. And sometimes, we may not see it in email, we may not, see it posted, but, if we get the information to them in some sort of way, have a meet and greet, or, once a month, make an opportunity for people to come. And even if they don't show up, at least you tried to make, the effort. So as a council person for District 6, I encourage you all, now that you have an opportunity to choose who you want to represent you for the city of Mableton, to take that opportunity and show up and vote.
There is very little wait. When I went to vote, people were fighting to help me. So you walk in and walk out. So I would do the early voting if at all possible.
Yes, Barry, I agree. And everyone is basically saying the same thing. You got to get the message out. We run into people every day, never didn't know that they were in Mableton. They know they're in the they didn't know there was an election going on. They don't know who's running. And we're out there doing our best to get the message out and meeting people and knocking on doors and doing meet and greets. And as Aaron said, at the very least, and as I've said many times, please come out and vote. Use your voice. I would love it if you all would vote for me, but at the minimum, come out and vote and encourage your neighbors, your friends to come out and vote as well. Don't just, hey, I'm going, say, hey, let's make a carpool. A bunch of us, let's all go at one time. That would be awesome if we could do that.
Yep, everyone go vote and try to get engaged in your community. Good neighborhoods start with good neighbors. And so it's going to start with us. And of course, go vote and check out candidates' websites. Look up who you're voting for. Get informed, be knowledgeable, not just today, but going forward on whatever you're voting for. Just get engaged in the process. Know what you're doing, know what you're voting for, and feel good about it. And vote for Patricia Alk for District 4.
Can I say one thing though?
Yeah.
I want to put it out there that we are willing to give rides to polls. If anyone needs a ride to the poll, please contact Cheryl Davis, Mableton District 5 at gmail.com, and we will give rides to the polls. All right, thank you.
Yeah, and then folks asked about where they're voting. So I think that you've voted. So early voting is happening at the Mableton Art Center and on Lions Club Drive at the Community Center. On election day, you will vote at your usual polling location. The only change I know of is that people in Bernie 2 who usually vote at the senior center was damaged. And so it is closed, and the voting location is now Bethany United Methodist Church. It's at the corner of, it's by the new the new fire station at the corner there of Austell and Hurt Road. It's Hicks and Hurt Road. So near the new fire station there along Hurt Road. But that should be on the letter that you received from the county. Everyone's voting location should be on that letter. If you haven't received it, I know they started showing up over the last couple of days, but your voting location will be there. And then, yeah, of course, we just want to echo, please vote, take a neighbor, make sure your friends and neighbors and family members who live are aware that to have them check to make sure that they're in the city and ask them to vote. You can share this video with them so that they can learn about these candidates. If anyone has any additional questions or anything, you can contact the candidates directly, or you can email dnxfrommableton@gmail.com, and we will, have the questions forwarded on to the candidates. I want to say thank you so much to everyone for participating, the candidates, to Ashley Carmen for her patience helping us get the tech set up, and to everyone who attended, anyone who shared. I saw we had some shares on Facebook. We've got lots of folks watching on YouTube, so we really, really appreciate that. Thank you everyone for your time, and please vote.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank
Night.
you.
Christy.
Thank you for everyone for watching tonight.